Hi, Christopher.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the Perfect Child podcast. I've invited Christopher Bates onto the pod to share his testimonial as a partially homeschooled child who now homeschools all five of his own children. I'm going to start with your bio. Christopher Bates is consulting director at a large global technology consulting firm. He's also the author of four books: Profitable Routines, a sales strategy and productivity guide; Strategic Rest, an immersive antidote to corporate job stress; This 15 guided journal, simple practices for a better life; and Brave Blind, exploring the edges of the soul in darkness and in light. Christopher lives in the beautiful Pacific Northwest and travels coast to coast and internationally to meet with clients. He is a regular speaker at corporate events and guest lecturer at colleges and universities. His client portfolio has a combined revenue in excess of $23 billion, dollars, and he is a recognized subject matter expert in CRM and sales and marketing business systems. He is the father of five, all of whom have been home educated, and is currently supporting home educating his partner's kids. Christopher, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
That sums it up.
It's quite a bit. All right, so you're obviously very accomplished, and you yourself were homeschooled during your high school years. Prior to being home educated, you attended four different conventional schools, public and private, for your elementary and middle school ages. So since home education can take so many different forms, what was your experience like?
Absolutely. No, I did have a varied background before starting homeschooling as a in elementary school and junior high, private public schools. My parents decided to homeschool us because they didn't really like what they saw in some shifts in behavior with my older sister, 2 years older than me. And then I was very isolated. I was the middle child and really kind of flying under the radar. Wasn't getting a lot of attention or support at school or really at home. And so my parents decided they got very excited about a very conservative home education program that was just starting up. They were very interested in it, in the benefits of homeschooling, and about this particular program. They applied and were accepted the first year, and then chickened out because it seemed like a lot to them. It was very intensive, a very heavy time commitment, and they just had a lot going on. I'll touch in on more of that later. But their intention, their motive, really was to allow more time for my sister and me to really focus on academics and not so much struggling with the social side of things in the public schools that we were in at the time. So that was kind of their why. Home was it was an interesting choice, I think, because home was not really a stable, safe place for us.
Okay.
My father had died when I was 4 years old. Mom remarried 2 years later, and that was a very tumultuous time for the next 10 years in our home. My mom was very distracted, and as the one kind of bearing the burden of the time and the energy and the thought of educating her two children, and she had a young one at home as well, preschool age. That was a huge commitment for her to take on. And so I think at first, our experience was, she tried very much to toe the line, tried very much to keep up with the scope and sequence, with the daily studies, and yet my mom was an amazing, powerful, incredible person who had her own artistic and creative intuition that was spot on. The first morning we started homeschooling, day one of year one in home education with a ninth grader and 11th grader, we woke up in the morning. It was fall in the Appalachian Mountains. Walked outside the house, and there across the back porch there was a huge spider web a zipper spider had created a web overnight, and she knew enough to take advantage of that. And to me, it stands out as really as a story, as a theme, and a reason that is at the core of my support for home education. And that is she took advantage of our curiosity. She took advantage of the love of exploring the world around us. And the freedom that homeschooling gave us right then. We didn't have to go get on a bus. We didn't have to go wait for a bell to ring. We didn't have to go sit in a classroom. Life came to us, and we were able to then be free to explore it. So we did a unit study for 2 days on zipper spiders, on arachnids, on insects, and learned so much. And it was delight driven.
Oh my gosh,
It
how
was
fun.
it was experiential. And then we kind of got back to the bookwork and back on the curriculum.
Yeah.
It's interesting. My experience, though, through high school is that kind of is indicative because of the instability in our family and our home. It really was hit and miss with both parents, and mainly with my mom. As again, that was her focus, was education, educating us. And so I had huge chunks of time, sometimes weeks, to myself. And what I found is I was curious about the
Yes.
world,
Yes.
and I explored the world around me. And home education gave me the freedom to go to the library and check out every book I could find on architecture, and
Yes.
explore for a year and a half as a sophomore and junior in high school, residential and commercial architecture, and then spend about 6 weeks as an intern, just in a,
What?
in a study shadowing an architect locally to see if it was something I wanted to do. And I decided that it wasn't, but I still love architecture, and I learned so much
Yeah.
in that delight driven, that exploration, allowing the curiosity to move. And that is at the heart for me, because I look back over a 30-year career in tech. I look back at every twist and turn in my own work experience professionally, and a lot of the creative personal projects that I've worked on. And it really comes down to be curious. Be
Yes.
curious about I'm a mystic. I love questions. And
Yes.
and the best questions lead to other better questions.
Yeah.
We're not seeking conclusive answers necessarily as we explore, as we're curious,
Right.
because as soon as we get it figured out, sooner or later something's going to come along and help us understand we didn't really have it figured out, and then we missed all this time and all these clues to keep exploring.
Right.
The love of learning
Yes.
uh, really is the drive and the fuel. I think that should drive homeschooling. It's not an external structure. We choose it deliberately as a way to change the context around our children,
Mhm.
so that they can learn about the world. And really, I think it comes down to, here's the clincher. I think we learn how to learn.
Yes. And what I love about the story that you just shared is I think when people listen to this, especially already home educating parents that are struggling because they're so focused on the academics or just the work involved, the fact that you by default, because your parents were busy and sometimes they didn't have the time to focus on your academics, that is where you grew. That is how you actually grew your curiosity and your independence. And now I'm hoping that the people who are listening to this testimonial can feel relief when they just don't have a thing to give. If you don't have a thing to give, feel secure that your child will innately still learn.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think all parents should think of themselves as home educators. It doesn't matter if your kid sits in a private school, a public school, or wakes up and hits breakfast and then hits the books at your kitchen table. It doesn't matter. as the adults around children, I think we bear a responsibility to help them explore the world around them, to help them develop that curiosity, to fuel the curiosity. I think when I observe my own kids from day to day, I think, what are they interested in right now?
Yeah.
Where's like the white hot center of their own excitement about their life experience right now? And I don't want to hijack that. I think sometimes parents, we make the mistake of, finding something the kid wants and then we like jump in too hard, too fast, too like we're the parent, like they're going to defer to us most of the, or bucket, one or the other. But like to find that tender place where they're curious, they're asking questions, they're wondering,
Yeah.
to help them um, begin to help them explore that more, to give them resources, to create a context, to create an experience. What are three things that I can do for each of my kids when I think through what are they interested in right now? What are two or three things that I could do to help um, fan that flame? I don't want to hijack it.
Hmm.
I want to, because their interests are going to shift. It's going to be
Right.
2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, whatever. They're going to move on to something else.
Right.
But I want them to experience a dad who sees that, like I can sense their interest in something, and I
Hmm.
encourage it. And I encourage their curiosity, and I keep them in a place of power and direction as they're exploring. And I'm just, hey, what if we go do this? What if no? Okay. What about that? What if we go to this place and you can see more of these things, or meet this person who's doing these kinds of works? So that exploration, homeschooling a lot of time gives us that freedom.
Hmm.
But even so, it doesn't matter. You could be in a school, a classroom, and have the same type of experience.
Right. And so, okay, so you, at the beginning of what you were saying in the second part that you were talking about, the curiosity and to hone in on what your child is interested in, you also said, well, don't just dive right in there as a parent, right? Don't overcome them. So like how do you help them to dive into their interests but also not get so overbearing?
Yeah, I think every kid's different. I have 5 kids. I have 3 stepkids. And in my experience working with kids, interacting with kids, I think every parent-child combination is different. And so the answer has to be effective for the child and legit for the parent as well. But I think that the objective that I'm interested in is helping my kids develop to learn how to learn. And so, what I want to do, first of all, Belinda, to answer your question, is I want to model that. Like, what am I learning right now? Where am I exploring in my world? Right now, I'm doing a project in investing, and I'm combining it with software. So I'm like talking to my kids, and I'm like out over in the little whiteboard that I use to brainstorm. I'm like, look at this idea I just learned, blah blah blah. And like I'm constantly exploring these new areas, and I'm modeling that for them.
Yeah.
And 6 months ago, it was something different. And, when I'm writing a book, I'm like, hey, what do you guys think about this idea? They see me like heads down, hands on keyboard, working, working, working. So I think we model it,
Hmm.
and we model that energy for them. And so we
Right.
can foster it with them to bring them into this experience of learning how to learn
Yeah.
and enjoying that experience. And then, we can draw direct correlation. Hey, I was telling you about this, short options trade that I just learned about. The same thing. Like, what about this thing that you're thinking about? This thing that you're learning about, this area. Even music. I just started learning to play drums like 6 months
Yes.
ago, and so my kids see me like struggling and working through the coursework and practicing and that kind of thing. So my stepdaughter just got a guitar, an electric guitar. So she's like, how do I do this? And I'm like, let's learn to play a song together. Like, let's drive that curiosity. I think she could be a musician. Who
Yeah.
knows where that's going to take her in life? But her dad bought her a guitar. Her stepdad's teaching her chords. Like, she has the support that
Awesome.
she needs to
Yeah.
explore. And she also sees me make a lot of mistakes. It's not about getting it right every time. So I think it's modeling. I think it's understanding with humility that at some point we will, three of my kids are adults and arguably four. One's
Yeah.
just numerically not there yet. They're just, so I think we begin to understand that we're laying the foundation for a lifelong relationship with our children. And I don't want to be that guy that just comes in and hijacks every idea that they have and, make it not fun.
Right. That is a very big thing I feel that parents have a tendency to do because we are so in the mindset of having to teach, but we're not trying to teach. It's like you're saying, we want to model. And
That's
in
right.
modeling, also, like you said, humility.
My 13-year-old daughter, we were driving on Friday, and she mentioned to me one of her friends group, an older friend in the group, had also been homeschooled, and he really bucked math, like anything above basic algebra. He just didn't want to do it, and there was this typical struggle. It's got academics. You got to get your academics. And I think as homeschooling parents, a lot of times we are aware of these benchmarks and whether or not you have state testing or whatever, and the comparisons. And I think in some professions it's necessary. You don't want a pilot that can't do math, like.
But I
But
mean, even today, I mean, let's think about that statement you just said, right? You don't want a pilot that doesn't know how to do math, but with AI, like are pilots even actually
yeah,
flying planes these days?
no, it's a bad example because I actually am a private pilot, and I was, so it all comes down to your hands on the controls at some point. So, um, my daughter was telling the story about her friend struggling with math, and then it basically came to a truce with his parents and said, "Look, I don't need this. I'm going into the arts. Like, this doesn't make sense for me to go heavy engineering on the math." And so they relaxed. He graduated, worked a gap year, brought himself back, and now he's in a community college. And he clept in, tested in, and he's in a 2-year associate's program, pursuing a profession that now requires math.
Mhm.
In order to clep in, he went back to a self-directed online study program for math and put himself through in 2.5 weeks about 2 years of high school math.
Exactly.
His mind was ready for it.
Yes.
He was curious. He knew he
Yes.
needed to. He was motivated. Again, I think it just comes down to learning how to learn. The thing is, parents got right was the most important thing, which is to learn how to learn. You can pick up the knowledge where, especially now, call it
Mhm.
AI. I don't trust AI to teach me knowledge, but the core fundamentals. We can go back to books
Yeah.
and find the fundamentals and learn quickly whatever we
Mhm.
need to learn fairly thoroughly. I mean, 80
Mhm.
to 90% of something, pretty quickly. We have so much information in our hands.
Yeah.
Why are we so stuck on the rote bookwork now?
Yeah. And again, it goes back to because this is several stories that have been told about children who are home educated that when they get to a certain age where their brains are more developed, they pick up things so quickly. And that's just as adults, we know we pick up things very quickly because our brains are ready. And so why are we forcing children to learn arbitrary things when their brains aren't ready? And then it makes them feel less than. And so
And
we
we
have,
create these environments like
yes,
in public schools let's just call them institutions. I'm not going to pick on public schools. There are some
right,
really good people who work
correct.
very hard inside an impossible system to do the best
Yes,
they can for the kids that are there.
right.
More power to you, full honor. You have my applause. I think that said, I'm going to let that statement stand where it is. And I'm still going to come in so hot on this because I feel so strongly
Hmm.
that these institutions were set up for children and they are not healthy for the mind,
No.
the heart, the body, the soul of these children to be restricted in these institutions is
Hmm.
training them to hate learning.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
training them that learning is uncomfortable, that it has to be stifling, that it has to
Hmm.
be you have to give up your freedom, and that's where it comes to you. No, we go to learning, and I personally feel that institutional schools are basically institutionalized, most of the time government funded babysitting so parents can go work and pay taxes. And
Correct.
there is homeschooling comes down to one of either two things for most parents. It's either a privilege that we have the time to be able to invest in our children in homeschooling, or it's a sacrifice. And we choose a lifestyle that
Hmm.
allows us to invest in our children rather than going on a big vacation once a year or something.
Yeah. And on top of that, I want to say, because there's a lot of people out there that actually do put their kids in school just for the reason that you're talking about.
And they have to,
They need a baby. They need a
they
babysitter.
have to.
But
That's the
but what you can do, because you have this knowledge that kids are always curious, always maintain asking your child what they're curious about and
that's right.
modeling curiosity, and also periodically making the time to actually take them out of school to do different things.
That's
No,
right.
don't let the government institutions run your life. Do
That's
not
right.
wait until spring break and winter break to do things. Do things when you as you please, and have the agency to tell the schools, no, we're not going to be in school today. Okay, you're going to slap me with like, and you they can't do anything. They literally need your money. So like, just do it. This is how we make change.
It's true. And I don't think the kids necessarily need to be privy to all of that adult level conversation, and the back and forth. Kids just need to feel the support for learning wherever they are.
Yeah.
We can support them when they're in public schools. One of my kids is in public school. Another one just quit public school to go to homeschooling.
Yeah.
The one that's in public school now, we have homeschool days for her about once a week. We get
Perfect.
asked almost every day, but um, but it really is about the parents supporting education and the academics. And I think especially, transcripts matter more typically into high school, but especially before high school, exactly what you said. It's what's best for that child, and it's what's best for the parent and child, because it has to be sustainable for the entire family and the
Yeah.
family unit. And there are times where, if a family is going through divorce, maybe the parents are committed to home education, but they need some extra support during that time. There
Mhm.
are the family situations that the home education choice as the mechanics and model of home education, sitting in the living room doing your schoolwork or whatever, is so flexible. It's so
Mhm.
flexible, but it's exactly what you said, I think, which it comes down to parents taking responsibility. If you have a kid full-time public school, take an interest in what they're learning and help them understand if there's something that's not working for them, they're just not getting it. It's okay to take your foot off the gas.
Yes.
I'll go have a conversation with any teacher and say, back off. Like, come on. Like, here's the situation with this kid.
Yeah.
Here's what we're doing to support them right now. Here's what we
Yeah.
need you to do to support them. And
Right.
the teachers that I know welcome that kind of conversation.
Yes.
Whether
It
the
gives
kids
them
want
agency because they probably want to help the child, but they can't articulate it because the school is on their necks. And so
and
as
they
a
want the kids
parent,
to be engaged.
yes, yes, exactly. It's all about taking agency, right? So tell me so you're saying that all of your kids, well, one goes to public school, but the others have gone through this experience, and you've done a combination of like unschooling and classical conversations. And is that because you're looking at each child and tailoring it?
To some sense, it's also kind of the stage of where we are in the family. and what's going on in the family. So
Hmm.
really it has been adaptable for us. We started with my daughter who's 23 years old, and she was our first child. So like we did everything like baby signs, like she was learning sign language and now she's proficient in ASL.
That.
But she was learning sign language as a child, read aloud, every day,
Mhm.
reading books aloud to the kids. And then we kind of cobbled together for the first few years with our first few children an academic program that was pretty heavily based in reading, but not really strict. We had a couple of kids that were not great readers until
Mhm.
later, so we just read with them and read to them, and again allow it to fit the child and allow it to meet the child, allow learning to come to them
Mhm.
naturally as life does for us.
Right.
If we don't resist it, block it, get in the way, shut it
Mhm.
down, all the things we're talking about that we as parents need to model for
Yeah.
our kids, the welcoming of lessons that may be somewhat disruptive to things that we think that we know. It's the same kinds of things that they're going to run into as well.
And are you saying basically, allowing the learning to come to the child? As a parent, don't we, it's helpful to work on ourselves so that we don't have this fear, so that we're not programmed into the institution's programming. Because this is where the problem is. We will pull our child out of school to home educate them, but then we also expect them to meet these expectations that are arbitrary.
Yep. Yep. And the humility and the openness that comes with that. So we were a part of a community, a group, kind of a spiritual community. One of my sons was, I think he was 3 or 4 years old. And in this community, the kids were with us, the adults are there, and we'd been talking about spiritual power and spiritual strength and how many times in our life we'll feel that we have this power, that we sense that there's this strength that's available to us that's not necessarily sourced directly from within ourselves. And so that was the context of the conversation. We got in the car and drove somewhere. My son was in his car seat, 3 or 4 years old. We get there, the door opens on the van, and he goes, "I've got the power of God. I've got the power of God, but I can't get out of my car seat." He couldn't unbuckle himself. I think life brings us a constant, steady stream of strength, power, lessons, learning, opportunities. And I think for us as parents to model for our children, how do we respond to that? And sometimes these things, these experiences look difficult. Sometimes these experiences look confusing. And so for our children to see our own openness and humility and to see our own process. I started to say struggle, but I don't think it has to be a struggle.
No.
Sometimes we glorify our struggles, but like maybe it's just this process that I need to work through and come to understand, and there are things I need to learn. And so I become curious. How do I deal with this situation at work? How do I deal with this coworker?
Yeah.
How do I, interact this financial situation? What are my options? And just to help our children understand, you can take the car seat buckles off our kids or off of ourselves, and say, you know, there is um, there is a love for learning that changes your life
Yeah.
and that can then help you navigate your entire career, your social life, your parenting life. Let's take the real example. How do we engage with our kids and find something that is of interest to them right now and then surround them with support?
Yeah.
Look, parents, here's a learning opportunity for you. How do you do that without hijacking your kid's interest and turning it into something oppressive?
Right.
Here's a great learning experience for us. How do you
Yeah.
learn how to do that? I
Yeah.
mean, one obvious thing is to ask your kid, how can I help you explore this?
Yes. And when you're asking that, practice saying yes. And if you don't feel comfortable saying yes because there's all these fear things popping up in your head, be silent.
Yeah.
Because all the stories that I hear of successful entrepreneurs, the stories they tell are always, when I had ideas, my parents always said yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes a huge difference. Yes makes a huge difference in everyone's life.
It does. It's huge. Yep. Yep, for sure. And helping our kids understand that, helping our kids break out of this the model around them. And I don't think that we need to necessarily put on our children that each one of them needs to be a leader in the community. Not each child has that in them,
Right.
but I do think there is a self leadership component that each child
Absolutely.
needs to understand and recognize and learn themselves. So yeah, so back to the curriculum, man. Like my kids right now, three of them are in classical conversations. One of them is using a homeschooling curriculum that we put together for them specifically. One's in public school. Three are graduated and out in the workplace and have their own families and are
Wow.
moving through. So it's what I think, and as parents, we have a worldview of our own that we want to share with our kids, and we want them to understand. Whether we want to, require them to agree or not, I guess is up to the creed. but um, but I think there are a lot of things that go into the choice of the curriculum. Personally, I feel so strongly not that every parent-child combination is different. My kid with their mom, very different relationship than my kid with me.
Right. Oh,
That's the
absolutely.
richness, that's the wealth that each child has in the community around them. So the right curriculum at the right time for each kid, the right way to engage with each child. And this is parenting. This is why we're parents, to help
Yes.
expose the world, share the world with our kids in a way that they can learn safely.
Yes. And then their mother is on board, has been on board from the beginning as well. So she's
100%.
really 100% home education.
100%. And
Great.
we've talked about different models and different methods and different curriculum and things like that. But there's been no question of alignment that there's support for homeschooling. So I have been fortunate in that. I think for me, there were times when I was homeschooling, probably as a junior and senior, that my mom really wanted to quit. And in essence, she basically did. She went a couple of months at a time without really paying any attention to what I was doing, and then it was all an emergency. What are you working on? How far along are you? So I got the end of that whipsaw. Um, but it worked out because I learned how to learn, and I
Mhm.
could go find out the things that I needed to in my career from step to step and stage to stage. But it was the love of learning really that's driven, um, I think, so much of my interest in home education and my kids as well.
Yeah. And you have three grown kids, you say, that have their own families now. Did they all three go to college?
They did not. One started college and then COVID hit and shut the whole thing down.
Mhm.
And so they went back and did a separate study program and moved into midwifery. Um,
Beautiful.
yep, and internship there and credentials. And then another one of my sons have just chosen to go back into a community college
Mhm.
and go back and resume some coursework there.
Okay.
And he's had, at this point, two different careers.
Hey,
And he's interested in a third. And so he's going back into college and he's going to work his
this
way.
is life. This is life.
He's learned how to learn,
Yeah.
and he's directing his own education now as a 21-year-old,
Mhm.
and doing just fine with it. And then my almost 19-year-old son is in the same position. He's now fully into a trade career,
Great.
and working hard and doing fantastic. He's also involved in community theater. He has a rich
Mhm.
life, great friends group, and he has a career vision. And right now, he's kind of step by step leading his life right now, circumspectly, every 6 months, making the twists and turns that he needs to make. Each one of my kids is in this direction. I was talking to my 13-year-old, the one that we were driving on Friday, and she's talking about college and different college options, local or somewhere else, and maybe a gap year to travel. My 16-year-old son might as well be 18. Um, and he's pretty clear on the direction that he wants to go as well. And I see him making choices as an adult. And so I just point this out because I think when we help our kids learn, and I'm super fortunate, my kids are amazing, and I can't take credit for it, but I think when we do encourage the love for learning,
Yes.
and we make that space and we make that priority and we model that for our kids, they learn that life doesn't have to be scary. These
Mm.
decisions that need to be made about careers or whatever, I can take that on. I can learn that.
Yeah.
And that becomes a very core understanding for them to
Mm.
know that they can lead their own life, to know that they can make their choices. If they get knocked out, they know how to stand up and get back up and move again. So
Yeah, and I think a core part of this is actually the fact that they feel supported by you, that you trust them to make
mm,
their own decisions and you'll be there to support them. And I think that is a huge indicator of success for children because oftentimes when they go through the institutional systems, their parents are against them as well because the parents side with the school if there's something going on. And that's a problem. So, as a parent, it's so important that we stand behind our children, that we choose our child above everything else. And this is what creates healthy human beings.
yeah, we can't delegate our responsibility as parents.
Yeah,
We cannot. We hire a babysitter to come in so we can have a night out. I'm not delegating my parenting authority to them.
right.
If the right thing to do is for one of our kids to go to public school or private school or some type form of institutional education for a period of time, I'm not delegating my parental responsibilities. I still hold it fully. That
Yes.
relationship with that child and that child's relationship with learning and academics belongs to the parents.
Yeah. Question. So, you've written 4 books. Were all of those 4 written before your children were born?
No,
Okay. Were some of them like, were some of them written because you learned lessons from parenting?
great question. You know, uh, uh, Two of the books very clearly were written in a professional context.
Hmm.
My professional job has been high stress, high
Okay.
pressure,
Hmm.
large tech projects, global impact, lots of responsibility. We could say stress. And I had to learn how to keep my soul in that context and not give way to um, coping mechanisms or
Yeah.
unhealthy um, thinking or lifestyle. So again, it's love for learning. I wrote a couple of books that I needed to read.
Yes.
And I sometimes I go back to them and I'm like, I need a refresher on this. Um, but the book of poetry really was deeply rooted in a very difficult time about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, as a divorce, I went through a divorce and some very difficult period of time, trauma in my life that had nothing to do with my family, and and had to find my way, and that was the poetry book, Brave Blind.
Brave blind.
But,
Okay.
but again, it's self-honesty. It's finding our way to our own integrity with the mystical questions and not and just seeking questions that ask better questions that lead to better questions and
Yeah.
understanding ourselves in the world.
Hmm. And the guided journal, do you think that your children have read the guided journal?
They have,
Okay.
at least a little bit of it.
Great. Okay, so I feel like a lot of people in generally, but particularly in the corporate world, are very invested in the straight and narrow path of conventional schooling, right? From pre-K through college, like learning inside a classroom with the teacher up at the desk, sitting in chairs for 8 hours a day, moving from classroom to classroom when a bell rings, eating at an assigned time, which I'm hearing now is only sometimes they only get 15 minutes in elementary school, which is not okay. And then the food quality is so bad. So, what are your thoughts about that? Like, why
Yeah,
is the corporate world or just like successful professions in general not seeing the problems?
I think they're trying to guarantee certainty of outcomes. They're
Okay.
trying to create a predictable success. But that's not what we want. Tell me one person, show me one person who truly believes that we need 1 million people a year coming into our workforce that all do exactly the same thing, exactly the same way, all the time, every time. They're disconnected from reality. That's not what we want. Seth Godin wrote a book called Lynchpin, and he says what we need in our communities, what we need in every context is the linchpin person, the person that everything pivots on, the person who connects, makes the connections and brings things along. And that's the person who thinks outside the box. That's the person who has learned how to learn, and they have this personal strength because
Mhm.
they know that if they fail at something, they can learn and pick up and try it again, do something else. So I think it's a couple of things. I think that's the more philosophical answer. I think practically speaking, that the world that you and I grew up in, you could still raise a family on a single income. But the world that our kids are in today really requires multiple incomes in a household. And so these institutions become a safe place, hopefully, for our children to spend time, right? For our children to
Um,
spend time while we're, earning money to pay the mortgage and put gas in the car. And again, it comes down to privilege or sacrifice for us as parents. But at very least, if our kids are still in these institutions, and that is our choice for now, child by child, year to year, year by year, we still can foster that's love for learning. We still can help them understand the context that they have to be in for
mhm.
that time and help them focus and prioritize. I don't think it's necessarily a binary or all or nothing, very polarized decision. Some
No.
families, that is their best option right now. And
Mhm.
let's do it and let's
Mhm.
make it good. And let's engage with the teachers and the staff of the school and get to know that child and guide their love for learning.
Yeah, I think, yeah, what you're saying is right because now it is the people who have to work two jobs and bring their children along. This is the time to recognize that this institutionalized learning is not right for the child.
Right.
And if they have to be in there, you have to be able to then break out of the box
That's
when
right.
they're coming out of the school system.
Yeah.
Stop trying to educate them and lead them down this path of going to college and getting a job with a big corporation. We
Yep.
need free thinkers and we need people to come with their own gifts and actualize their gifts and make a living out of that. Like every child, I believe really that every human that is birthed into the world has their own gift. And
Yep.
when they step into their passion and they build something new, this is how we all find success,
That's
right?
right.
And
Blow
it's
us
just
away.
been stymied.
Blow us away, kids.
Right. It's
Blow us
just,
away.
yeah. Like, so we need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like, do the
Yeah.
work to help your child to get to where they're, I mean, do the work because you have to support your family, but allow your kids and like light them up,
That's right.
light them up.
Yep. Find that white hot center that's in them today
Yeah.
and fan that flame. Build a context around it. Don't squelch it. Don't bring your own thing on it. Help
Yes.
that child fan that flame. Whatever it is, whatever they're interested in. 2 weeks from now, it'll be something else. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it.
Right.
It's engagement.
Yeah. It's the engagement, it's the connection, it's the interest
Yeah.
in hearing what they think. And it's not squashing them down when they are complaining that they don't want to go to school. It's
Yeah.
having that conversation. Right now, we have to work and we don't have an option for you, but let's think about what else we can do. So let's ideate together. Let's be
Yeah.
open to all ideas because then you're modeling, like you said, modeling learning.
Our 10-year-old who's in public school is not doesn't have a personal affinity for math.
Mhm.
She's very creative, very fashion aware, um, and it's beautiful. And she still has to do her math homework, but she started making jewelry,
Mm,
and a family friend has a booth at the local farmers market, and invited her to come display some of her jewelry for sale. So now she's making inventory and calculating profit and loss and calculating how many items she needs in order to show up at
yeah.
the farmer's market and how she's going to price those items. She's learning math
Yeah.
around something that she's passionate about and cares about.
Right. Right. It's literally, we have
And she's
kids these
happy
days.
to learn the math.
Right. Because the kids now are like, don't have me doing things that are meaningless. I'm only going to do it if it's
I'm the
meaningful.
same way.
Hello, are we all? Why are we doing stupid things? Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was
Thank
so
you.
wonderful.
Thanks for your work. I appreciate it.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we end our time together?
I would just encourage us to really make this practical right now, to
Yeah.
really think about the children, your children, but also all the children around you that you have influence in.
Yeah.
Where is their curiosity right now? Where is their love, their engagement, their interest? And if there isn't something, I had a teacher in the seventh grade when I was really struggling at school, and she pulled me out of a classroom where I was starting to get into trouble. I was really failing at this private school, and she pulled me into her classroom during her study time. She had a period of time where she could do paperwork, grade papers, things like that. She pulled me into her classroom and walked me around her classroom and said, "I want you to look around and find anything that you're interested in. Tell me what you're interested in." I went through the around the entire room, and she followed me, and I stopped at a typewriter. There was a mechanical typewriter there. This is, I'll tell you how long ago this was. And she said, "Would you like to learn how to type?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I will teach you, but you have to learn it the right way. That you have to put your hands on the keyboard in the right way. You can't just use your index fingers." So she set me up with the keys, the typing practice, the keyboard, and for 2 weeks, I spent an hour a day in school learning to type. She found something in this kid that was bored out of his mind and socially really not a misfit. And she helped find something, and then she fanned that flame. And it really reignited my love for learning. And my mother would tell the same story. It really
Amazing.
reignited my love for learning. So I think that my parting comment would be, let's engage as parents. Let's take the time to think about each of our kids and where their interests are right now. And then please, next week, do it again.
Yes.
Week, do it again. And the next week, do it again.
Yes. And who is this teacher? She's still alive. I should interview her.
She's already an angel.
Oh my goodness. Good for her. I'm sure she's just kind of like heralding so many other souls. And real quickly, in the same line as that, when we meet children, please ask them what are the things that they love to do. Don't ask them what's their favorite subject in school. Please stop perpetuating this school subject thing. That would be
True.
my comment.
Love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Be
All
well.
right. I'll talk to you soon.